Hiya BookTube, Bill Ruttenberg here with the Ruttenberg Library, and I wanted to come to you. I'd like to call this a review, but it's probably more of just a book talk, and I wanted to give you my thoughts on H.G. Wells's The Time Machine. I probably should prep this with, I don't read science fiction, which is why I don't really want to do this as a review. I just want to do it as a book talk. I'd had several of you asking how did I like the book? How did I like science fiction in general, I guess? And so that's kind of what's prompting me to do this video and tell you my thoughts on it, because I got to reading this book and I was about a third of the way through the book, and it's a short volume, by the way. H.G. Wells, The Time Machine. It's 141 pages long, so it's like an afternoon read. You could very easily finish it in an afternoon. And I was about a third of the way through it, and my wife, who knows I don't read science fiction, she knows I don't read that. I don't read fantasy. I don't read that type of stuff. I'm more of a nonfiction guy. And so she asked me, how do you like the book so far? And I'm just like, yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's okay. It hadn't caught my interest yet. And anyway, as the evening went on, I think she thought that I wasn't going to like the book at all, because that was my initial response. But as I got, probably halfway through the book, it really started picking up pace a little bit. And as you met more of the characters and got more into what I think H.G. Wells was trying to do with the novella. Anyway, so let me tell you about the story a little bit. So it's about a time traveler. The story takes place, I believe, in the late 1800s, like 1890s or something. I can't remember the exact year of where they were at. But anyway, this guy starts talking about directions: up, down, forward, backward, left, right, and then he starts talking about the direction of time so he starts talking at like kind of a dinner party. He starts telling these people about, there's a way of time traveling. And of course they're all like, uh-huh. And so as the story goes on, he ends up time traveling. And those other characters are kind of side characters. They don't really mean a ton to the story. Most of the story takes place as he's traveling, and it's done from his perspective, the time traveler's perspective. And that's what we call him, as the time traveler. I don't believe that he actually ever had a name. And most of those side characters, that was the editor, it was I can't even remember what the other jobs were, but they were named by their jobs. So you kind of get this feeling that they aren't real important characters. But at the same time, they only called him the time traveler, and he is important to the story. But anyway, he ends up time traveling. And he goes clear to the year 802,701 A.D. And apparently in this new world, we'll call it, or new time, the human species had subdivided, and you have two species that are not really human. They're kind of human, but not really. And you've got one species that lives above ground, another species that lives below ground. And he gives these descriptions. The one that lives above ground is the Eloi, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, the Eloi. And you quickly come to realize that they are representative of the rich class. And the Morlocks are the ones that live below ground, and they are representative of the working class. And the above ground, they're vegetarians. They are, I call them light and fluffy, and kind of carefree, and they love life. They live it up while the daylight hours are going on. And then in the evening, a fear comes over them, and they all sleep in the same area. It's kind of like a commune almost, and they all sleep in the same area. And then he discovers the Morlocks. He ends up going down this well, or this tunnel, and he goes down to see the Morlocks. And the Morlocks are given a description that is, it's not light and fluffy. It's more of a, your mind kind of gets to spinning about a evil, disgusting looking people. And they live underground. And as he goes down the well, he hears this thumping, boom, boom, boom. And it's an industrialized society down below ground. And the problems that they have is they're obviously they're underground, so they're not growing food and stuff. So they are not vegetarians, they're meat eaters. And in order to eat at night, they have to hunt. And it gets into this whole idea of the Morlocks are hunting the Eloi. And he actually, if I remember right, he witnesses something down below ground of the eating. And so anyway, the time traveler in this whole story meets one of the Eloi, the above ground. Her name's Weena. He had actually saved her life, saved her from drowning. And it was really weird because in the story, she ends up in this river, starts floating down, and none of the other Eloi really even pay attention to her. They're like, who cares? And so he goes and saves her. And she becomes very, very attached to him. I mean, there's nothing romantic or anything like that. It's a safety thing, and she feels comfortable and safe with him. So she hangs out with him pretty much the whole story. And it's going to play on some themes here. And the themes that I picked up on, and please keep in mind, I've never read anything by H.G. Wells. I know nothing about H.G. Wells. I've never looked him up, or at the point I was reading this anyway, I had never looked him up. I had never read anything about him. I'd never read The Time Machine before. This is my first reading of this. I wanted to try a science fiction. It's a thin volume, so I thought, we'll just try that. It's a classic. Everybody says it's good. And so as I'm reading this, I start picking up on these themes. Some of them are like very, very obvious. He throws them right in your face. And he starts talking about this, it's basically a rich versus poor storyline. The rich are above ground, the poor are underground. And because of those conditions, it creates these, the above ground things are, you got the sun, you got plenty of water, you got all this good stuff. So life is, light and fluffy. And then below ground where things are, you get a lot of negative stuff with the environment, and where it's dark, it's there's no food, all that kind of stuff. And so you get this not light and fluffy people. And it's the environment that's causing some of these conditions. And so you get this rich versus poor. And some of the other things I picked up on, he starts questioning who really is the master race here of these two societies. And of course he plays on the Europe versus Africa thing, which in the time period that this is written, that definitely would have, I can understand where that theory is coming from, just because of the people of that time and how they thought and all that. But he picks up on this because the above ground Eloi at night are scared when the below ground come. And so he starts asking, so who is the master race here if they have to live in fear? Is it them with a great life, or is it the ones who cause the fear? And it was a very interesting twist here. And it was almost a good versus evil of how society views things. Let's see here. He really plays up that the Morlock being industrialized has forced them to be more savage. And so he really gets into some of the themes of what's happening in society in the late 1800s with industrialized nations, where, if you go to the inner city where a lot of the industrialized workers are living, you see just poor, down and out conditions. And it's a savage, you don't go out on the street at night. You get pickpocketed, you get murdered, you get, all this stuff. And he really plays that up in this story. And I thought that was very, very interesting. And of course, then later on, I go and I look up H.G. Wells, and I realized he's a socialist. So he's playing on that thought of the rich are the ones that actually cause this, cause the poor to be in this condition. And is industrialization the right answer to the economy, and all this kind of stuff. And so I thought that was really interesting. So as the story goes on, basically what happens is the time traveler loses his time machine, and it's the Morlocks. They hid it, and they hid it as a way of trying to, create a trap for him. And so the story plays on, and I don't want to give too many other details, just because I don't want to totally ruin it if you've never read it. But the time traveler, he does end up getting to his machine because he ends up traveling further. But what you see is, and I think it's Wells playing on that same theme of what the human race is doing to, through industrialization, what we're doing to the planet. And basically he goes even further into the future, and eventually he sees that everything has been obliterated. I mean, there's really nothing. There's some of the natural stuff on Earth that's left, but as far as society, it's gone. It's been ruined. And so he comes back to the present day in his time machine and ends up telling the story at this dinner party. And it has some very interesting dynamics, and I really appreciate it, because it's not just a science fiction story. I mean, there's so many things that he's playing on with society. And so anyway, my wife didn't think I liked the book. And so as I got done reading it, and I was going to do a review immediately, but then I was like, no, let me sit on this. And so the longer I sat and thought about it, the more and more I'm liking this book, just because of the play on the themes that are running through this book. And I think it's I almost want to say brilliant, the theme that he ran through the story. And I truly appreciate it. The only probably negative thing is I would like to see the book be a little bit longer and go into some more detail and run that story just a little bit more. But then again, do you lose the themes? Does it, if it's a longer story, are you still thinking about it like I am right now? And so anyway, that's kind of my take on H.G. Wells's The Time Machine. I'm not even going to rank it. I just wanted to kind of ramble a little bit and give you my thoughts. And I know there's more to learn about it, because all I did was a quick Google search on H.G. Wells. I try not to read about the author until after the story, because I don't want preconceived notions. And I want to go into the book innocent, so to speak. And I definitely went in innocent on this one. And I saw a sort of brilliance in how he portrayed society. So anyway, that's my take on H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. I hope you enjoyed this BookTube. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.